This is genius.
This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
I've never seen so many mullets in my life.
No, it's just about feeling good.
You had more chins than a Chinese phone book for a while.
Man.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah. I mean, he's right. He said, "Goonies never say die." We're going.
We got this.
All right.
I was pulling the trigger, but the safety was on.
I just Randy Black Eagle.
That's it. Boom.
That's my.
That's how we roll. Just drop the mic and walk away.
Words are powerful.
They are powerful, but people abuse them. They don't realize the power. There's a lot of good firearms instructors and good archery instructors out there that will talk you through a shot, but they're not teaching you how to do it yourself. Mm-hmm. And then when it came to the shot, it's like, oh my God,
autopilot.
There's a shot. Autopilot, save me, right? Mm-hmm. Bung, and off the arrow would go. When you leave this clinic today, mm-hmm. you should be self-sufficient in the diagnosis and treatment of any shooting problem that could occur. You now know exactly the blueprint and how to follow it. So it sounds
so now we're a bull, and
right,
we're gonna sweet talk a lady.
Right, you're talking very
inappropriately to her,
right,
while her husband is there,
standing right there. With
right there. That's insulting.
Yeah. Check this out. Good concentration equals good shooting. Good shooting does not equal good concentration.
Yeah.
On this episode of Gritty Bowmen, we learn how to become a better shooter from Joel Turner, owner of Iron Mind Hunting. Joel's instruction is much different from any other shooting instruction I have ever received. This is a quote from Joel that touches on his philosophy. People get stuck in the rut of thinking tactics and gadgets will solve their problems. What I am here to show you is it's not the tools you have, but the system you must have in place to be effective. At first glance, it is easy to dismiss Joel's ideas and training as snake oil, or as the same thing you've heard from countless other efficient shooters. But although seemingly subtle, I found Joel's ideas and teaching methods profoundly different from anything I have heard before. I cannot recommend Joel Turner's shooting training enough. Whether you are a seasoned shooter or new to the game, Joel is an effective teacher with an iron mind. You don't want to miss this podcast. At the end of this podcast, Joel shares some deep thoughts on how to call in big bulls using what he calls the bull calling cow's bugle. It's a fascinating concept, and Joel has the track record to back up his theory. It's interesting stuff, something I'll probably be trying out on my next elk hunting adventure. You can find everything you want to know about Joel Turner at www.ironmindhunting.com. Check him out.
Ready? You ready, Bodie?
Say yes.
Yes. Check. 1, 2, 3. Breaker. Red team, go. All right, folks. Welcome to the Gritty Bowmen podcast. I am here with Joel Turner and Bodie Turner, Bow Hunter Turner, in Salem, right?
Right.
We're at Brent Hahn's home.
Yep.
We shot his 3D course. Who has their own 3D course?
Pretty nice.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And we came down here to get a little taste of shooting from Iron Mind Hunting, mm-hmm. which is your brand and kind of what you're all about.
Right.
So for folks who don't know who you are, give us a little background.
Well, I started shooting a bow when I was 7 with no instruction whatsoever. I picked up my dad's bear cub recurve and just started slinging arrows. And ever since I was 7 years old, was just completely addicted to the mystical flight of the arrow. You know, just watching that arrow fly. But by the age of 8, I was fully engulfed in target panic, not have any idea what that was. You know, I used to have to hold like 6 feet over a target. And then I would just dump my bow into that, right? And it didn't get any better by itself. I just progressed and kept progressing and always wanting to know how to get control of this thing. And, went through high school and college with the same thing. Went through the back tension releases and all that stuff, but eventually ended up punching everything. And
When you say punching,
I mean, like, moving your trigger too fast that you could stop, right? To stop or evaluate it, right? So
rushing the shot.
I could not stop a bad shot before it happened.
Yeah.
And then I became a police officer. And when I became a police officer, I went through lots of firearms training. And that's when it really dawned on me that I can no longer screw this stuff up. And I've been a cop now for 15 years, sniper team leader on a SWAT team for 12 years. And those just aren't environments that you can mess up, So I really had to figure out shot control. And that's where it was born out of necessity. And I became the lead firearms instructor for Washington State at the Basic Law Enforcement Academy. And that's where I was able to really put this thing to the test and really figure out how to get somebody to concentrate on a movement that's going to create an explosion. Because that is not natural in any way, shape, or form. You're born with a response system that will protect you from that. And that protection, unfortunately, deviates your point of impact.
And when you say an explosion, you're talking about, it's easier to relate for me in my mind. It equates to bow hunting as well, but with a firearm, there's a true, legit, like, loud explosion.
Right. So you've got smoke, fire, noise, recoil, all these bad things that happen when you press that trigger.
That our body instincts are,
right,
get out of the way.
But with firearms, shot anticipation is actually less than it is with a bow. Because when you shoot a firearm, your body can still be fairly relaxed, and all you're doing is one little movement that creates this explosion. In archery, you're holding back an explosion with muscle tension. So it really wants to know when that release is going to happen.
Right.
And therein lies the core problem in shooting.
Because your body's anticipating that this shot's going to go off.
Yeah.
And even if so I'm thinking as I shoot that I'm doing a pretty good job of being surprised when it goes off. But not really.
Right.
It's not really the case. I'm not.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of surprised, but there's a vast difference between being truly and absolutely shocked when the shot breaks.
Yeah, it's not that it's a huge shock, because, your body gets used to the explosion, be it with a firearm or with a bow. But it's being able to know how to get yourself to that surprise break. The core problem in shooting that I was dealing with at 7 years old, that you're dealing with now, and I still deal with, everybody deals with target panic or shot anticipation in one form or another. Oh, we have a friend. So, everybody's dealing with this in one form or another, but you'll see around the globe, it usually takes certain forms, like if you're shooting sights and release, being locked off of target. If a guy is at full draw and they've put their finger on the trigger and they aim at the target, there's no reason. It doesn't make any sense to the subconscious to actually work through this trigger slowly. Why would you ever do that when you can just get through it? The problem is that getting through it is always linked to recoil bracing. The core problem in shooting is that your mind will not allow you to cause your body impact as a surprise. So it formulates all these things to keep you out of that.
What is recoil bracing?
Recoil bracing, like that drill that I did with you, it's an input into the shot. If I was to push you over right now, you would catch yourself. Well, what I'm talking about is having the ability to not catch yourself, right? If you know an explosion's coming, like if you see me coming, you're going to brace for that, right?
Right.
You see it in everything, martial arts, football, anything. You see, if that person knows impact is coming, you see the body start to brace for it.
Right.
Same thing in a startle response. If you clap your hands behind your head and you don't know that's coming, you're going to have this. Your head's going to go down, your hands are going to come up.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's all these self-preservation responses that are dealing with shooting. So
when I would train dogs or horses, more so horses, I want a horse to back up, right? So I put my hand on its shoulder or chest and I push it because I want it to move sideways. What does a horse that's untrained do? pushes back.
Right.
It doesn't move like I want it to. I push on the horse, and the horse pushes it into my hand. It just it's an auto response to that pressure.
Right.
And today you did some exercises with me where you put that pressure on me, and my natural response is to put the pressure back.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you didn't put the pressure there, and I'm putting the pressure to you, and I'm like, whoa, I'm falling over here.
Right.
Where did that go?
Yeah.
And but over at the first time you pushed me, though, I wasn't ready for it, and I just got pushed.
Yeah.
But after that, I was ready. Push me again, brother. I'm not moving.
Right, right. So as soon as you took impact one time, your body then formulated that motor program. It elicited that self-preservation response and went, hey, I know exactly what to do with this. Here it comes again. And it just built that.
And what you're saying is that builds into your shot.
Absolutely.
Because you're holding back all that power, and your body is basically instinctively it wants to resist the push, like the horse resisting the push. Your body's going, okay, I want to resist, so it prepares for that recoil.
It wants to know when that big release of energy is going to happen. You see it in different forms. Like if you're shooting compound with sights, you're going to see, like if somebody tries to shoot with an open hand, right? Well, if they shoot with an open hand with no wristling, they should be dropping their bow every single time they shoot. It should be flying out of their hand, but you never see that, right? Because as soon as this goes.
Yeah.
It's bracing for that recoil.
And I work with guys all the time about that. You know, I think I'm doing a pretty good job, right, of having that shot go off without me grabbing the bow. And I've seen it many times where they've grabbed the bow before the trigger was even pulled.
Right.
And that's when the really bad shots are taking place.
When you see it in slow motion photography, you always see this go first, and then this
then
goes.
the trigger.
So it's the brace first, which is an input, which deviates the point of impact, but it all happens so fast in one giant motor program, you don't see it.
Yeah.
And also, many people actually close their eyes during that, and that's that blackout that we talked about before. You know, they'll shoot at a critter and go, did I hit it?
Right.
Because they didn't see any of it go on, because closing the eyes is a natural reaction of the body to protect you, right? So, you know, you're dealing with this in any shooting sport, be it firearms or archery.
You were describing how this is different, too, than like how shooting is slightly different than I was talking about basketball.
Right.
You know, making that critical shot, you know, concentrating all the way to the very end on like a layup, you know, and making sure you carry through to that actual layup instead of getting 99.5% there and then being like, okay, it's going to go.
Right.
It's like you let go, you give up on the shot.
If you knew, like if you're shooting a free throw and you knew that the basketball is going to explode into a million pieces if you shoot it perfectly, if you knew that was going to happen 6 inches in front of your hand, you'd never hit a free throw, because that movement now becomes the anticipated movement. Just like in firearms, it's this, in your release, you know, whatever it is. The shot activation movement becomes the anticipated movement. It's the one that causes the explosion. That's why when you shoot, you know, when people just draw back and they know they're not going to shoot, well, all of a sudden they can put their pin right on the spot. They can get their finger, dance it all over the trigger.
They're relaxed.
It's no problem,
they're
right?
Not gonna
because
shoot.
They know that impact is not imminent. Same thing in blank bail shooting, right? As soon as you close off the timing mechanism, which is your eyes, you can then get through these shots with perfect feel.
Well, and I've talked about that as to people. I brought it up on the podcast a number of times, where my shot vastly improved when I read a Randy Ulmer article about shooting, and he talked about shooting with your eyes closed, 5 to 10 feet from a target, blind bail shooting, and you pull that shot back, and he was like, now just focus on, you know, all the relaxed, all the mechanics of good form, but basically pull through, you know, with some back tension on that release, you know, until the shot breaks. And when it breaks, you should be completely surprised. Right? And that's going to give you the best shot. So I do that.
Yep.
He's like, don't even shoot a target with your eyes open for a month, 2 months.
Right.
So I do that. And I'm just like, wow, this feels good. Like, I'm totally surprised. I never know when it's going to happen. Never know when the shot's going to break.
Right.
And it goes, and I'm like, then I go out and after a couple of months, and now I'm aiming at a target, and the pin's sort of drifting. It's not right where I want it.
Mm-hmm.
But Randy was like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
The point is to do that form. So I start doing that, and I become lethal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hitting very well. I'm like,
Right.
wow, this is cool. And then after, a week or two of shooting with my eyes open, I start doing what I did before.
Right.
And then I went back to the basement, and I would spend more time shooting with my eyes closed
Right.
than I ever did with my eyes open.
Yep.
And then hoping that my muscle memory or things would carry over
Right.
when I actually shot. But didn't take long before I developed bad habits again.
Right. Because what you're doing, most people that shoot blind bail or blank bail treat it just as that. Just like you said, you're just trying to get the feel, right? And you said it felt so good, but that's where you're stopping, and you've got to carry that further, right? As soon as you close your eyes, you no longer have the timing mechanism, so you're allowed to then concentrate on whatever you want, right? So you were getting this feel, but the problem is that you were then expecting this feel to work for you, this feel to be transferred to actual shooting. And the problem is that those physical skills don't transfer into a high-stress event. Instead of just trying to get the feel, you got to remember, you got to get yourself to ask the question, how did I get that feel? How did I get myself to concentrate on this movement, to accomplish
Now you're
that
getting
feel?
all zen and
Right, I know.
mind game stuff
Right.
going here, which is the whole point of
Right.
this whole weekend, this whole day.
Right.
Just so people know that are listening, before we get deeper into this, I came down here. I wanted to meet you. I wanted to get some training. I've heard things about you from various people, and I heard you talk on the Sharp Sticks podcast maybe a year and a half ago.
Right.
And a lot of things you said really rang true to me. So I come down here. We go out. We shoot some arrows. You immediately notice some,
Sure.
problems with Gritty's shot, and so you kind of walk me through some things, some exercises. We do some discussions and blah blah blah. You go, okay, now let's go back and now let's shoot. So now I take what you said, and now I'm back there and I'm shooting. You didn't tell me how to hold the bow in my left hand, how to grip it. You didn't tell me how to pull the release. You didn't tell me, any cues that are kind of normal that most shooting instructors or people that are good have given me. You completely focused on what was between the ears and what I should be telling myself.
Right.
Well, I'm kind of like surprised how well I shot after using my brain instead of my hands and my arms and my shoulders the same.
It's not about the physicality. I mean, once you develop decent form, it's about what is going through your head. The mental skills are what you need to transfer to high-stress events. You were shooting the bow fine. Your form is fine. I mean, you were gripping the bow right and all those things. You've got to get mental control first, and then you can tweak form issues. But if you don't have mental control, your form issues, like you were talking this morning about how you changed bows and it was this big transformation for you.
Yep.
That should mean nothing to you. You should be able to grab anybody's bow with anybody's release and shoot a controlled arrow with it. And those are the skills. We've got to be practicing the true skills that we need. Once you've got the physicality of it.
Well, and that's what I want to get into a little bit in a few minutes. The high stress situation, because shooting blind bail and then going out and hitting the target, that worked pretty good as long as I practiced a lot on blind bail.
Right.
But as soon as a high stress situation came, I pretty much reverted to how I shot without the blind bail.
Right. So the blind bail stuff, what it does scientifically is it returns you to the cognitive stage of learning. It makes you think about every little piece.
For sure. That's why I like it.
Right, but then you
forces me to stop fussing about the pin, stop fussing about where the arrow is going to land.
Right.
And it allows me to just also feel. For the first time, I could feel parts of the shot, like my back tension, my shoulders, where my elbow was, I could feel things that I sort of blacked out on.
Right. But the mind never stops learning. And then as soon as you went to an actual shot, then you start into the learning process again, right? Now being on the spot equals an explosion. That's why you started to drop in slow from the top, and it's like, oh God, Brian, we're getting closer here, ready, booyah, right? And off it would go. It needs to know when it's gonna deal with this release, and that's what it's always trying to get to.
So I come here, I shoot, and I'll just say, just for people that are listening, the way I shot when I got here this morning to the way I shot at the end of the day is night and day. I just did a bunch of 3D courses over the last month, trained to hunt, and I did Total Archery Challenge. I've been shooting, went to BC, shot a lot before, after I got home. The way I shot today felt so good, and I didn't stress about any of the shots, and they all broke, and they all were like kill shots. I'm like, well, things got a lot easier.
The key is that now you know how to do what you were always seeking. You were seeking the controlled shot. Just everybody is seeking the controlled shot, especially on game animals or in high-stress tournament events, right? But the only thing I did for you today is I gave you the how to actually do it, what decisions to make, when to make them in your shot, and how to carry them out. I gave you the mental blueprint, and I gave you ways to actually formulate your own mental blueprint by those questions that we talked about. Now you know how to do it. So now when you go elk hunting this year, it's not, if I get a shot, I hope I hit this thing. It's, if I get a shot, I know exactly how I'm going to run my shot.
But see, I always thought I had that. I'd hear like Dan Evans talk about, here's what I have written on my limb. This is the steps I take, and then I shoot. I have those steps in my head, but they weren't the same.
So we went, when we talk about words as the route to concentration, right? When Dan Evans has got a list of things on his bow, those are made of words. Every time he reads a specific thing off of his shot sequence, that puts his mind into that specific thing, right? And he's using that list as a visual aid to do that, whether he knows that or not. Any shot sequence, any list is made of words. When you read a word, it creates attention to whatever that word means. It puts your concentration into that thing. That's what we're using to get yourself through that shot activation movement. So a lot of what you do in your shot should be an automatic movement. Like job number 1, draw back and aim, get it done, watch to keep it. That should be done very efficiently.
Yeah.
But the second job of the shot, putting your concentration into the movement that makes your bow go off, that's the part that can never become automatic. That's the part that always has to remain in the cognitive stage of learning.
So we've got Bodie here.
Bodie the man.
Bodie, your son.
Yes.
And Bodie, how old are you?
9.
9 years old. And Bodie's an excellent shooter. And how long have you been shooting, Bodie?
Since I was 10 months old.
Dude, that's ridiculous.
He couldn't even stand up. I've got video of it. It's pretty funny.
So 10 months old. And so Bodie watched me. You had to go work with another student in class. So you're like, Bodie, keep an eye on him. and he immediately could pick apart what I'm doing wrong, you know. Oh, and he's not shy about telling me.
I know, yeah. His filter's not established yet.
No, it's good. I need that. I need that. And then we went on a 3D course, and you're how old now?
9.
9 years old, and pretty much shot lights out. And
Yep.
What do you think about all this stuff your dad's talking about?
I've heard it a lot.
I never sat Bodie down and said, okay, here's what you have to do. I thought, well, maybe I'll just have him listen to this, and he's watched it so many times to the point where, sometimes he gets me in a little trouble because we'll be at an archery range and he'll just walk up and start watching somebody I don't know. Right?
Yeah.
And he starts picking them apart. I'm like, hey, kid, that guy's a lot bigger than me, right? Just relax for a second. So
But I think what happens is, you're excited to share it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because
yeah,
you
absolutely.
know you can see somebody doing something. You're like, man, there's a shortcut to this to make your life a lot easier, and you want to share that,
Right.
But a lot of people feel like they've got it figured out already, and I think we talked about this. A lot do.
Yeah.
You know, they shoot very well
Absolutely.
until that high pressure moment.
Well, a lot of people, there's a lot of really effective hunters out there.
Yeah.
The problem is that, if you're talking about the rest of the population, me being one of those, I wasn't able to go to that really good hunter that was very successful and go, how do you do that? Because many people that are good shooters can't explain how they do what they do. You talk to a good basketball player or something, anybody that talks about being in the zone, right?
Right.
How do I get myself in that zone? I mean, like I said before, it took me 13 years to kill a bull elk with my bow. I don't want people to have to experience that, right? I mean, that's a lot of heartache, but, I stuck with it because I loved it so much. And now that I've pretty much, I think, I guess my own opinion, I've unlocked the code to the controlled shot because now I can shoot absolutely controlled shots on game, and the people that I've trained can do that because I'm giving them the how to do it. And it's fantastic to see the success of those people.
Yeah.
They say, man, I couldn't have done it without you or whatever, which I know they can, but this information makes it so much easier.
I just had a podcast with Scott Carr, who has drastically improved his shooting in a very short window after taking your online class.
Right.
That says a lot, dude. Yeah. And then one thing I should say is, going around, you're shooting a recurve, a longbow.
Yep.
Yeah. Recurve, longbow, same thing, whatever. Traditional.
Yeah.
We're going around the course. You're shooting as good as the compound shooters, without question, better. And you're at all these long distances and yardages, straight up, just as good. Probably the best, so far, the best traditional shooter I've seen. Most consistent. I mean, there wasn't really an animal who didn't die today. So, I mean, that to me also says a lot. It's not like you're just saying it; you're actually doing it.
I practice what I preach, and you. The thing is I just have made a vow that I will not shoot an arrow unless it's perfectly controlled, and there's no reason to do that. If you just sit there and you go to the range and you practice your shooting, you are wasting your time. You're actually making yourself worse. Like from the age of 8 to 28, I didn't get to be a better shot. I got more efficient, right? I just became more efficient at dropping my bow into the target or whatever. So if you watch me shoot, if you watch Bodie shoot, and you shoot now, it's not efficient. That's not what we're trying to get. We're trying to get accurate, right? And that has to be a consciously driven shot activation movement. So,
So, Bodie, you maintain concentration pretty well. How do you do that?
Well, I've done it for a really long time.
Yeah. What do you tell yourself when you're at full draw?
When I started to shoot, and when I started to shoot with a release, well, I punched it for like a day. Then I think my dad was hoping somebody the next day, and I listened to what he was doing, telling them.
Yep.
And I thought I might try that.
Nice. And so, when you're up there, you're patient, and you can see he puts it's his pinky, right? That triggers the release. And you've got that thing on there, and I'm watching you squeeze, like pull, keep pulling, and then it just breaks, and it's a beautiful shot.
Yeah, I saw the same things in Bodie that I see in everybody. Like when we first started him shooting a little stick bow, right? And he was 10 months old, right? So by the age of 2 2, he's shooting balloons out of the air with his little suction cup arrows in the kitchen, right? But then you put him on a target and you see this. At 2 years old, you see the mind start to learn the process. So at 3 years old, he starts shooting a clicker on his stick bow, right? I taught him to draw back and aim and then move slowly until that thing clicked. And that progressed. And then as soon as he started shooting a release, same thing, right? He did it right the first few times, just like the first time you shot your bow, you didn't punch the trigger.
Right.
So he started out, and then he started to punch the trigger, right? Just the same thing I saw. So instead of trying to explain all this scientific stuff to him, I got him a Carter Evolution, which is a resistance-activated release. So push the safety in, draw it back, let the safety off, and then just pull, and you set it to 3 or 4 pounds heavier than your holding weight. So that kind of mechanically separated the shot for him.
Right.
Now that he's old enough to kind of start to figure this stuff out, he can run any release he wants now. I mean, anything I put in his hand, he will dig into that thing and move slow enough to get a surprise break. So
that's the thing that I think is pretty cool. And we talked about this. A lot of guys achieve it as soon as they switch to a different release.
Right.
For
a moment.
The back tension release.
Yeah.
They're on it, right? They're like, okay. And they don't know when it's going to go off, and they achieve that perfect shot.
Right.
But then after a while, they get to feel of that, and then they can work it.
Yep. Their subconscious begins to learn it. It's always seeking to know when the explosion is going to happen.
And you were talking about Randy Ulmer, or I was talking to you about Randy Ulmer, and I think, well, anyway, they were talking about at full draw, Randy using multiple releases, and maybe even one that never went off.
Sure.
So he's got a release that keeps him honest, because it may, no matter how much pressure he puts on it, go off, and he's got to let down. You know, you're always pulling one out of the bag and putting it on. You don't know which one it is. That's pretty, pretty cool, right? And it can help you, stay honest, right? Because every release is a little different, at a little different tension, so you can't develop a connection to control it.
Right.
But what you were mentioning is, not to offend anyone, but just the fact of the matter is that you're achieving through mechanical means success, but what we want to achieve is through concentration.
Right. You got to know the mental skills.
We want to achieve it through concentration rather than reliance on mechanical means that surprise you.
Right.
To keep you honest.
Because only then, you're not going to carry 5 releases in your pocket when you're hunting, right? And that's where the rubber meets the road. Can you apply the mental skills that you have practiced to a high-stress event?
Well,
that's a true skill.
That's what I felt like today. All of a sudden, I had 100 times the concentration during the shot. And the usual sort of panic or impatience or the shot going off, and I'm just like, I was hoping for a better shot. Now, when the shot went off, I was like, I expected a good shot. I don't know. I just was like,
Yeah, it's very empowering to know how to concentrate.
Yeah.
I asked you that question, how do you concentrate? And you get a myriad of answers from people.
It's a weird question, dude.
It is. And it's one that most people have never been asked. But you've told people in your life, I need you to concentrate on this.
So I focus.
But you never...
I think harder.
Yeah, but you never told them how to do it. And, thinking harder, Bodie and I were at the Washington State Target Championships this weekend, and I was listening to the advice that was given. I was back there on my phone. I had it in my notes app, and I'm just writing down these things that I'm hearing. I had one dad, his kid was fully engulfed in target panic, shooting a back tension release, but he's coming down on the target and then boom, and just snapping through the whole thing, dropping his bow. And his dad comes up to him and he says, I need you to focus and shoot hard. What is that kid supposed to do with that? Right?
Right.
And I heard all kinds of things and all kinds of excuses. Oh, I yanked that one. Oh, I should have never shot that one. I was shaking on that. Whatever it is, everybody's dancing around the problem, and until you know how to concentrate, you're really kind of dancing with it. So, the advice that's given, you have to be really careful, because if your instructor is only telling you what to do, that's not necessarily the mental blueprint on how to do it. So you have to be really careful.
So let's get into that for a minute, but I got one more question for Bodie.
Uh-oh, here we go.
And then you can take off, dude. We won't have to keep you any longer on the podcast. If you were, so what's your bit of advice to new young shooters? It can be anything.
A lot of kids I see, I mean, they start off good. But, like, I went up against a girl when I was pretty young. She had a bow kind of like this. And I just had my little recurve. We were shooting a clay pigeon at, I think, 15 yards. And she couldn't hit it. She shot one, she missed. I don't remember the whole thing, but all I remember is I got it before she did.
So what happened, that was Bodie's first money shoot, right? He was 3 years old, shooting against a 13-year-old, right? So, of course, the 13-year-old wants to beat the 3-year-old. Like, it would be embarrassing to not win that, right? But that 13-year-old allowed that to run her system. So she's up there shooting with just hope.
That's high stress because I got to beat a 3-year-old or people are going to laugh at me.
Right, and that's where, Bodie's shooting a little recurve with a clicker, and he just stayed in his business at 3 years old, right?
Yeah.
Because that's all he knew was this controlled shot. So that's what we see. So I guess what Bodie's trying to say is get some control of your shot, right? Come see Bodie. He'll teach you how to shoot.
Yeah. Dude, thanks, brother.
Welcome.
You can throw those headsets over here.
Watch your bow there, pal. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, man.
All right, buddy.
So how does one concentrate? How does one do it?
So, when you think of that question, how do you do it? People start thinking, and they always talk about what concentration is for them. And concentration, what you have to realize is it runs through words. Like you talked about Dan Evans' shot sequence.
Yeah.
Those are written words. So when you read a word, it draws your attention to whatever that word means if you know the definition of that particular word.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're using words to create what I call attentional flow, right? You are flowing your attention. You're creating an attention bridge between your mind and the muscles that you're trying to work to get through this. And you have to control that movement. So you have to speak. I mean, you have to talk yourself through it. We see it all the time. I ask the first question, how do you concentrate? And people come up with answers. And then I ask them, have you ever heard somebody concentrate? And they think that's even more strange. They're like, no, I've never heard that. But everybody has heard somebody concentrate. They've all heard somebody, especially in high stress, say something more than once and in a rhythm, right?
Yes.
Like, I hear we used to get ready for a wrestling match or whatever, and people would be amping themselves, come on, right? Why do they say it more than once and in a rhythm? The little engine that could, right? I think I can. That is the route to concentration.
I think of Finding Nemo. I told you earlier.
Sure.
Keep swimming, keep swimming, keep swimming, keep swimming.
Right. So
that's concentration. Okay, keep on. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
So you're talking yourself through this movement, and through that other deal that we did, the speed limit at which you can move and remain in control. You have to remember that your speech and your movement are linked. So if you need to fix your movement, you need to fix your speech pattern first. So sometimes if people are having trouble with it, I'll have them say their mantra, if you will. I'll have them say that out loud. Because then me as an instructor, I get to hear exactly what's going through their head. You'll hear the anticipation in their voice. And that means, that gives me that route to know exactly what's going on. I have them fix their speech pattern, and it fixes their movement.
So some of your cues are get it done.
Right. No slow move, and that means no slow movement to target. If you're coming down on the target or if you're coming up on the target, you are wasting muscle fatigue
and precious time.
Get it done, right? If you know it's 30 yards and you got a 30-yard
Just stick your 30-yard pin on it.
Yeah, or if you're...
I'm sorry, but that was like novel today. Yeah. I mean, for real, like, I've been shooting a long time, and you're like, it's 30 yards, put your 30-yard pin on it. And I go, ding, it's on, without an arrow on it, right?
And
you're like, put your 30-yard pin on it at full draw, and I'm like, coming down, settling, trying to find it carefully, and I'm
because
there.
It's thinking impact is coming. So it slows that whole process down and goes, as you're getting closer, okay, get ready, here it comes now, right? So that you aiming at the target should have nothing to do with you shooting an arrow. It has to feel like you're not going to shoot that arrow every single time. And that's a bit of a hump to get some folks over. Like, if you're shooting a trad bow, just getting to full draw means the explosion to a lot of people.
Right.
That's why they short draw it or whatever. So, and locking off target, guys are calm as a cucumber as long as the pin is sitting at 6 o'clock on the spot. But then as soon as they try to jump it up there, it sends the motor program.
Yeah.
So
no, it was very easy once I just decided to put my pin on it.
Right.
Just put your pin on it.
Yeah.
And then you say,
watch it to keep it.
Watch it to keep it. And then I'm just like, then I'm done aiming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. I'm moving on to the next cue.
Right.
Which was keep pulling.
Right. And, with the whole watch it to keep it thing, people put way too much emphasis on aiming. You don't have any control of it other than through your eyes. So as long as you watch the system, just like, when you drove here today, you see those two lines on the road, you get visual feedback that vehicle is veering slight to the right, and you make an exact correction, an automatic movement, right? As soon as it goes off center, it's instantly brought back.
Yep.
But you have to watch it to do that.
Yep.
So that's...
But you just let it happen. You're just driving, you're like, a little, and you're just constantly correcting without really doing any effort.
Yeah.
When I hold that pin up on it and I just put it on the target is really cool because I would just watch it to keep it. Get it done, just get it there.
Mm-hmm.
And watch it to keep it. And the pin just sticks.
Yeah.
And then even when it went off, it just went right back by itself. Like, I no longer kept trying to force it on there.
Mm-hmm.
I just stuck it there.
Yeah.
And then it would just go back. And I didn't tell it. Before, I'd sit there and overdo it. I'd be like, oh, I went too far left. Bring it back right. Okay.
You're physically trying to control it.
Yeah. And as soon as I just stuck it there, my body just put it there.
It'll keep it there. And it's a bit of a trust factor for folks. You've got to trust that that's all the control you have over it. You don't have any muscle control over it. Just stick it on there, get it done, and watch it to keep it. That's as good as it gets.
That's fascinating. I mean, really, like I said, I mean, I'm sitting here for years, you'd think that it'd take years to break this habit, right? But it was just a conceptual change, and I stuck it on there, and like I said, it just stayed on the target.
Right.
And before, I literally, one of the reasons I come down on it is because I'm trying to get there without going past it, right? And then when I get it there, and I'm way too much effort.
Yeah, and I'm
so focused on that too. I don't move on to the next stage effectively.
Concentration on aiming allows the subconscious to tell itself when to let go, when to release. Therefore, you're going to punch the trigger. You're going to have recoil bracing timed in that. And that's just the way we work.
Yeah. So the next cue after watch it to keep it is, keep pulling.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I heard that, I was like, keep pulling. I heard people say pull through, pull the trigger, squeeze,
Right.
And your cue, the one that you tend to use, is keep pulling.
Right. And the science behind that is if you are trying to impart concentration on somebody else, like if I was doing some minute thing and you saw the correct movement and you wanted me to continue that movement, you would say keep whatever.
Doing the
Keep,
movement.
Yeah, keep and then the motor program. You yell at a football player running down the field, right? You don't just usually yell, run. It's keep running, right? You're trying to actually impart concentration on that thing. So the keep is a key word in the mantra because it means to continue, right?
Right.
In this particular context. So job number 1, draw back and aim, get it done, watch it to keep it. Job number 2, put your concentration into the movement that makes your bow go off, whatever that is for you. You do that through the use of words. That's how you put your concentration there. It's not only the what to do or the where to put the concentration, it's how to actually do it. How do you create this attentional flow to it?
Right.
You do it through the use of words.
So you gave me another release today, which required a lot more force to fire than I'm used to. I can see now how that super sensitive trigger that I've got down. Like I know when it's going off.
Sure.
There's no surprise. There's zero. Like
Yeah.
I think there's a surprise because it's so touchy.
Right.
It's not.
No.
Anyway, so I get this new release, and as I'm pulling through, as I keep pulling, I was doing the mantra, keep pulling, and I'm suffering from this stiff trigger. Like
Right.
it's hard to get this release to go. So I'm like, dude, is this ever going to go off?
Right.
You know? And here I'm, come on, go, break, keep pulling, and I'm like, keep pulling.
Yeah, right.
And I pull through, right?
Right.
And it goes off.
Yeah.
Wasn't surprised when it went off.
Right.
I pulled it with such intensity until I just pulled the trigger.
Yeah, you made the movement the trigger. So, how you said that, when I heard you say that, we slowed your speech pattern down. I didn't say anything about slowing your movement down. You had to slow your speech pattern down first. And
so that changes, like, okay, now I'm back here and I'm going, keep pulling.
Right.
Keep pulling.
And you're constantly, now you know how to evaluate whether it's going right or not. You've got those evaluation points. Number 1, on that pad of your finger, you're feeling that squish, that increase in pressure. And number 2, on that wrist strap, you're feeling that increase in pressure. And you probably got marks to prove it, right?
I got it. I'm raw.
But you're
skin.
able to stop a bad shot before it ever happens because you're moving in what we call a closed loop control system. It's slow enough that you can catch the feedback within it. Very few people let down because they're shooting with an open loop control system that's too fast to evaluate. Like you couldn't stop the first trigger press I saw you do. Right?
Yep.
Once you sent that motor program, there was no calling that back. And then you're just like, you shoot, boom, and you're like, well, I hope I did good, right?
Yep.
You had no way of knowing whether that shot was going to be perfect.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, and it was.
But then I'm pulling back, right, and I'm doing it like you're describing, and I'm going, keep pulling, slower though, keep pulling, and it goes off, right?
Right.
What's surprising when the shot breaks is I'm utterly surprised. Like I even jump a little after the shot, right?
Uh-huh.
But I assume because I'm getting these tight groups, that jump is so far after the shot,
after the arrow's already gone.
that's a big deal.
All of your shot anticipation movements are anticipated, right? Therefore, they are before the shot goes off. They're going to deviate your point of impact. Now what you're shooting is a zero input shot. You don't know when it's going to go, so therefore you can't catch the recoil before the arrow's gone.
And it's brilliant because then and I know conceptually that's how I need to shoot. I've read it, I've tried it, I've achieved it at times, but I've never achieved it at the consistent level of success as I have today, just by the way I talk to myself.
Mm-hmm. It's gaining that knowledge. I mean, we're all trying to do that, but people don't know how to do it. You got the blueprint today. You have the blueprint for the controlled shot.
The other thing I was saying was, so instead of keep pulling, and then just pulling the trigger, now I slowed it down. I'm keep pulling. That same steady pressure I'm putting on. I'm feeling it in my wrist. I'm feeling it at the pad of my pointer finger on the trigger. I'm feeling that tension. I'm just squeezing with my back.
Right.
My back tension.
You're much more cognitive in that
Right. I'm just thinking about, I'm feeling all of it.
You know every little aspect of that movement now, and now what you're going to do from here on out for the rest of your life is you're going to use shooting to practice your concentration. I mean, think about how much concentration it takes to get you to that point where you're able to evaluate all those things. It is very powerful to have that information, and just you know how you're going to do it now.
Yeah, no. When I'm back there and I'm doing it, and I'm like, okay, I've been at full draw a while. I can feel I'm not the shot isn't going to go how well I want it. I can feel all that stuff logically. I can feel it physically, mentally. I know it logically. I can set it down, pull back, and nail it.
Yeah.
And before the shot's going off one way or another, I'm just going to hope it shoots better.
Right.
Shoots, even though I know after now I feel it, I can feel it's not going to. It's not going to break well. It's not going to happen the way I want.
And it's you when you step up to the stake. This is how I approach shooting. When I step up to the stake, it's a shot I might shoot. It's a shot I might not. I'm only going to shoot it if it's going perfectly. And when you make that decision to start,
what Scott Carr.
Yeah.
He said at Train to Hunt last time, too.
Yeah.
Basically, similar thing.
When you make that decision at the start and you know how to follow that decision, how to carry that decision out, you become unstoppable with it. I mean, you shoot a perfect arrow or you don't shoot it. It's that simple.
The thing is, it's different here is I'm not obsessing about, we talked about this, too. I was, like, overjoyed whenever the shot went off and I wasn't ready for it.
Right.
And then whether I hit the target perfectly or not, I didn't really care because I achieved the concentration.
Right.
The concentration was the goal.
Right.
Where the shot hits was sort of secondary for me.
Yep.
But what's neat is that the accuracy of the shot just follows the concentration. So I don't really need to worry about. I just need to do the concentration part and let the shot fall where it falls.
Good concentration equals good shooting. Good shooting does not equal good concentration.
Yeah.
People are trying to achieve this. They're trying to achieve, they're trying to fix a mental problem with physical means.
Well, especially with a compound, it seems that, after shooting today, we should all shoot so dang good.
Yeah.
We really should, because so much precision is built into that. But we're all inputting extra crap into the shot because we don't have concentration.
You can only, if you shoot with an open loop control system, meaning if you activate your trigger faster than you could stop or modify within the movement, you're only ever going to get as good as your recoil bracing allows you to.
That's it right there.
And that's a reality check. Some people don't want to hear that, right? And that's cool.
I think some people do a pretty good job of managing that recoil bracing.
Some people have a very minute, like if that drill that we did, some people about fall on the floor, and some people you can just barely see the movement. And that's kind of a personality thing. But no matter how you look at it, unless you're
not superior to a closed loop,
it will never beat a completely zero input shot.
Right.
There's nobody that is in the elite levels of archery that is punching a trigger.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. You don't get there by punching a trigger because you might be good for a little while. Mm-hmm. Like there's some stick bow shooters that are phenoms for a little while, right? If they're shooting with no psychological trigger, they're really good for a little while. And then once they start to learn it, their scores start to go down, and then they just kind of fade away, right?
Yeah.
And that's a shame because these people have phenomenal talent, but they get frustrated and this and that, and maybe pride or whatever doesn't allow them to go get instruction. And it's a shame, but you see it all the time. In the compound world, people last a lot longer because they're shooting surprise breaks.
Right. It's I have this problem. Now I'm going to this other surprise break and this other surprise break and this other until they've used them all.
But they've figured it out, though. I mean, as far as they'll shoot a controlled shot, and they've got coaches and whatever that are watching them and on them like a hawk. So you see the people in the compound world, it's the same people. over and over for years on end. In the trad world, you don't see that. You see it, maybe a 3-year span is about the maximum that you see somebody shooting where they allow their subconscious to tell themselves when to let go. Unless that person is extremely regimented, you see that start to slip. And I don't like to see that. I like to see people do as well as they want to do.
But what are your thoughts on, like, the way, you have, like, Native American Indians, like, and you read some of the textbooks where these guys are accurate with it, they're just pulling snap shooting even.
Right.
And you see these guys who snap shoot. They're shooting quickly, instinctively, and there's some have achieved high levels of accuracy.
Right.
So how does that translate into this concentration, this thinking shooting?
There are good snap shooters out there, but you don't see those folks in elite levels of archery, especially target archery. So that person might be a good hunter, but if they're a good hunter, they're still making certain decisions in their shot. And usually you'll find that those people, even though they snap shoot, they're very calm people, right? They're very calculated in what they're doing. And even though they're shooting a snapshot, a snapshot is a very efficient shot, but it's not probably the highest level of accuracy that you could get, but is it good enough to get in a deer's vitals?
Yeah,
maybe, right? But,
won't do you much good for a 12 ring.
Right. So, those you don't see those people at 3D tournaments very often.
Yeah, I have talked to a few who've killed a lot of animals, but they admit they're very accurate with this size target at all these different ranges, but that won't win you anything.
Right, and that's in the police world. There's cop accuracy, right, which is minute of dude, right? As long as you can keep it in dude, as long as you can keep it in the target, you're all right. But, that's not the world that I live in as far as the precision sniper type world. You have to make shots that are very precise, and you cannot miss.
So what if a guy wants to speed up his shooting? Should shoot faster.
So what you have to do is you have to be able to recognize your environment. Like if there's a bull elk walking 10 yards in front of me, and I have to time the shot when he gets in between a couple of trees or whatever, you're not going to forget how to punch the trigger.
Yeah.
You don't have to practice punching the trigger anymore. It's a time shot. Stick your pin.
I can do that pretty good.
Or stick your pin and get on where you need to be, and as soon as you see the proper sight picture, you're going to let it go.
Yeah.
So, it's there's a time and place for that, for an open loop control system. But if that critter is then standing out there at 40 yards, if you do that same trigger punch, it's probably not going where you want it because it's going to have recoil bracing linked to it. So, and in the cop world, if you're in a close quarter battle with somebody, if I'm me to you, I don't need a very good trigger press, right? But then if somebody comes around the corner 40 yards away to defend you, and I need to put lethal force on that person, if I press the trigger on them the same as I did on somebody this close, I'll never hit that person.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to instantly switch from open loop to closed loop, right? From this fast trigger punch to precision movement.
Yeah.
You got to be able to recognize when, in most archery shots, it's the precision that's going to get you there.
Well, I found myself today fighting, throughout the day, somewhat fighting. In fact, we came up to our first target, and I immediately reverted back to the way I always shoot.
Right.
I completely spaced it on like 5 levels.
Yep.
and wasn't a very long shot. And I think I hit dirt.
You did.
And it was like, what the heck? I was just drilling up here. And it was like, okay, I didn't even use anything I had learned.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. And then the next shot and the shots after that was like,
we're all money.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I hit dirt is I even used the wrong pin.
Yeah. You've got to realize the decisions that you made, right?
But there were all these people watching and all this stuff, and it was high pressure, and all of a sudden...
That's what, Iron Mind hunting, if you come to one of my clinics, I'm going to have you shoot under pressure because I'm having you practice your concentration under pressure because on that first shot, you didn't make any of the same decisions that you did out here, right? it took you one shot to really go, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to do all this other stuff. So my whole thing is getting people to make that decision no matter what. And in all these clinics, I always do it at a venue where you can go shoot 3Ds to where, you go do this and you become this backyard hero, but now we got to go apply this science in the real world, as real as we can get it, So
with some pressure.
Yeah, and your subconscious will never, ever want you to shoot a surprise break. It's always going to go, it's okay, Brian. We've been doing this for a long. Let's just do it the way we've been doing it, right?
Yes.
I've gotten you through this many shots, but
that body shudder is usually when I'm the subconscious is saying this to me, and I'm fighting it, and I'm like, no, and then yeah,
and it's the skill of knowing how to fight that battle, and you put it into play on the second shot and all the rest of those shots. But you can't ever think that you've just got it. You can't ever step up there and go, I got this. Because if you say that, you instantly start into the learning process. And your mind's like, yep, we got this.
We'll take it over for you.
We'll take care of it.
We'll rescue you from this situation.
It will never stop learning. It will never stop trying to make you more efficient.
So one thing that we talked about was I was saying, well, what if I'm sitting here and I'm trying to break that shot a little faster before this animal walks out of my sight window? And I was thinking what I would do using the words and the cues would be keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. And that would speed up my tension break. And you were like, actually, that's not the right cue. What you need to do is not increase the speed at which you're saying keep pulling, but increase the aggressiveness.
Right, the aggression in your speech. When you think about weightlifting and such, last rep, you're not talking nicely to yourself. You're doing all kinds of aggressive sounds, right? So if you need to kickstart your movement, don't speed up your mantra, just say it with more aggression. You have to talk to yourself louder than the stress that's coming in. A lot of times when I ask people, how do you concentrate? They say, well, I focus or whatever. But you've got to know, you got to use aggression to kickstart it.
When you mentioned that, I went right back to, nailing a heavy lift, right? And if I'm gonna squat clean that and clean and jerk it, right? And it's 255 or something, 285, and I pull that thing up. When I walk up to that, I can't go up to that bar and go, just pull it.
Yeah, right.
I gotta be like aggressive.
Right.
I gotta pull it like I mean it. This bar is gonna mess me up if I don't really give it all that power, right? So I come up, and when I pull that bar up and I'm catching it on the shoulders and I'm standing up with it and I'm getting ready, there's no doubt. I'm not sitting there wondering whether I'm gonna do it or not do it, or I'm just doing it. And I'm also concentrating at a super high level. And if I go up not concentrating, that bar goes all over the place. I'll jerk it and it'll go above my head like 3 inches behind me, and then I'm like trying to compensate and get it back.
Right.
I have to focus on all of those steps, and I've been doing it a long time. And the people who lift heavy and do it successfully, and those that don't with some of these complex movements, it's concentration. Absolutely. I see it all the time. I work with people all the time. I'm like, you're not even thinking. You black out. You go pick the weight up, and it's like you've quit before you've even...
They're trying to run on autopilot.
And they literally have checked out before the bar is halfway up their body. It's like a fight or flight, I think. And they're like, get me out of this situation. They black out.
Yeah, self-preservation. It's the same thing that we're dealing with,
It's scary trying to pick up, 250 pounds, 300 pounds, and catch
if you're
it.
putting it over your head, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And so if you're really not concentrating, it's so easy, I think, to just bail out of it, to jump, out of fear.
Right.
And I can equate that now to shooting as well, especially after you mentioned that. And when I'm in that moment of trying to shoot, concentrating through the whole thing instead of just bailing myself out with a crappy shot. Because there's a lot of
Right.
pressure there. And I'm at full draw, and I'm like, okay, keep pulling. And you're all watching, and I'm like, come on. When is this going to break and stuff? And I'm like, if I just shoot it, finally, it's just over.
Nobody's really going to know, right?
I remember this time, I got this story for you where I was playing paintball like every weekend, a bunch of us guys. There was like 15 of us. We go 7 on 7s, 8 on 7. And we would, it was just a blast. And we all got into these groups, and some guys had like semi-autos, and others, like me, is too poor. I just had, your little pull trigger and stuff, and single shots. And but you know who won?
The single shot guys.
The guys who didn't panic.
Yeah.
The guys who didn't panic. And I remember being there with my brother-in-law, and we're surrounded. There's like 4 guys peppering us with paintballs, and we're down underneath by this log, and it's just flying over us. And I'm like, okay, how are we going to get out of this? And I'm thinking through it. And my brother-in-law's like, dude, they're coming down there. And then he just panicked, right? I'm like, calm down, dude. We got this. Don't worry about it. We got this. He's like, dude, I don't know, man. I don't know. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. And I'm like, calm down. He's, I can't take it anymore. And he stands up and he just runs. And he just got drilled. And I took that moment to get myself out of there. But I'm sitting there going, what the heck was that? And what it was I can't take the pressure anymore. I just want out. And if it means just getting blasted to pieces, I'm done. I can't take the pressure. It's this fight or flight. It's just dumping it all. And I equate that to, I think about that a lot. I'm at the shot, and it's so tempting to just bail myself out. Just suicide it.
Right. It's going to be, your mind's like, it gives you the good enough thought. The good enough thought. You've worked almost all the way through this thing, and your mind is like, why are we doing this, right? Why are you adding more tension to make this explosion a surprise? I don't like this, right? Let's just go. It's good enough. I mean, your pin's on it. What the hell, right?
It's good enough.
It's going to go somewhere.
Right.
In there, right?
It's close enough.
And that doesn't ever get you to the level of elite status, with shooting. So, you'll get to the point where you don't necessarily have to say your mantra anymore. You'll know that you're not going to shoot that arrow unless it's perfect in concentration. You know what decisions you've had to make. And it's until you get into high stress, right? In high stress events, I still scream to myself, right? I'm working through my grips here on my recurve or my longbow, and I'm screaming, keep pressing, because, it just doesn't make any sense to your mind. I'm at full draw on a big blacktail buck.
You just want to let it go.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the perfect sight picture, and your mind's like, what are you doing, idiot boy? Let it go. But it means so much to me to shoot a controlled arrow. I'm not shooting it unless I get through my psycho trigger, right? When I shot with a release, I was not going to shoot that arrow unless it was perfect. And yes, I have had critters walk out of my sight picture. Okay. I've killed enough critters now where it's not that big a deal.
I was telling you that at 50 yards, 60 yards, 80 yards, I'm like, I actually have a lot of patience, and I'm really focused on pulling through. And if I don't get the shot off before the animal moves, I'm like, oh, well.
Yeah.
But 40 and in, I get 30 and that down. I just am like, it's good enough.
Yeah, it's easy, right?
I completely bail on my... on being committed to waiting for that shot to break by a
with
surprise.
me, like I said, it took me 13 years to kill a bull elk with my bow. It was like I didn't want to get too close, because the closer you are, oh my God, he's going to see me or he's going to go, and it would freak me out. And now that I have mental control of my shot, I don't care if he's 5 yards. That's fine with me, So
when you're talking about aggression on the shot. Instead of saying, keep pulling, it becomes keep pulling, keep pulling.
When you do that, your face gets more tense, your jaw muscles tighten when you're doing that.
And I could feel the pressure on that trigger, and the pull through got more intense, but didn't go faster.
Right. You don't need it to go, you
it's
know
a
the
subtle
speed limit.
Difference.
You know the speed limit. You can't speed the mantra up. Otherwise, you'll jump loops. You'll jump into open loop. Just aggression in your speech adds aggression to your movement. And, once we talk about the decisions that have to be made, and can I talk about my pig story?
You bet.
I always talk about this. So I was, once I started to figure out my mental control, I became a backyard hero. I mean, you come to my backyard, you ain't going to touch me, right? I get to a 3D tournament. Not even close, right?
You're beating everybody.
Yeah, but you put a critter in front of me, and
There's guys like that
worthless
all over in the archery world. Tons of guys like that.
I was worthless, and I couldn't figure it out. Why can I
win every 3D tournament but come home without a freezer?
I mean, even some fairly high stress shoot-offs and stuff. But then you put a critter in front of me, and I couldn't do it, and I didn't know what the problem was. So I'm in South Texas on the King Ranch, and I'm missing everything, right? This is 2008. I'm shooting a longbow with a clicker. I'm not getting through my clicker on anything. I've missed, I don't know how many hogs on this trip. My buddies are making fun of me. And I'm like, man, I got to figure, I can't do it like this anymore. I've got to figure that I'm supposed to be good at this stuff, right?
Right.
So this was kind of in the infancy of the program, but I went off to a feeder by myself, right? Feeder goes off. Here comes a hog. He's coming, and I'm like, okay, this time I'm going to do it right. And that hog comes in, he turns broadside, and I pick my bow up, and I start to draw it back, and I had the same anxiety, the same weak feeling, the same knowledge that I'm not going to get through my clicker on that shot. I'm trying to aim at him, and it's just a mental mess. And that is the moment that I changed my life. That is when I let that shot down instead of shooting it, right? Because if I had shot that shot, I would never have learned what I know now. So I let that shot down. Hog didn't see me. I'm like, okay. Kind of gathered myself a bit. I picked my bow back up, and then I started to draw it back again. And as I was drawing my bow back, that is when I said to myself, I'm going to do this right. And what that did, making that decision of perfection within the shot instead of before the shot, because for those 13 years and for all these hogs on this particular trip, I made the decision too early. And then when it came to the shot, it's like, oh my God,
Autopilot.
There's a shot. Autopilot, save me, right? Bung, and off the arrow would go. But as I'm drawing my bow back, I said, I'm going to do this right. And I know that I said it with that determination, right? And it killed the autopilot, and it made me intensely present on what I was about to do. It got me to full draw. It got me to aim, and now I'm looking at that perfect sight picture through my longbow. I know that if I just let my arrow go, it's probably going to do the job, right?
Yeah.
But because I had made myself intensely present into that shot, I remembered I had a whole other job to do, right?
Yeah.
So freeze frame for a second. Let's freeze frame. I am at full draw on this hog, right? Now, let me ask you questions about any shot that you've ever shot as a rushed shot. I can almost guarantee that you have fired that shot, be it a bullet or an arrow, within 1 second of you believing the aim was complete. It is the critical 1 second in time. If you can get yourself over that little hump, you can remember all those other things that you're supposed to do in your shot, right? So the critical second, how do you get yourself through this critical second? And in 2008, I didn't realize what I was about to do in this shot. Remember, I'm still at full draw on this thing, right? So if you've ever jumped off of a high thing into water, bungee jumped or anything like that, when you're standing on that platform, you have to make a decision. And the decision you're making is you're deciding to cause your body potential impact, right? You're standing there, you got that bungee cord around your feet, and you're like, oh man, here I go. And you jump off, right? You jump off that platform.
Right.
And you don't really know what's going to happen. It might break, right? But there I am at full draw on that hog, and that is when I said those exact words. I'm at full draw, looking at the perfect sight picture, and I said, here I go. And that reminded me, oh yeah, I'm supposed to say my mantra. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to move at a rate that I could stop or modify. Oh yeah, nobody's got a gun to my head making me shoot this shot. And that, here I go, takes about 1 second to say. It fills the critical second. Instead of firing the shot within the critical second, because if you do that, you're going open loop, you're gonna do recoil bracing. It's gonna be linked.
Right.
So you've got to talk yourself. That is the verbalization of your second decision. That decision to set that hook and to move at that slow rate, even though you're looking at the perfect sight picture, knowing that as soon as this thing goes off, you're gonna get it. So the two decisions that I now make on every single shot is my half draw moment. At half draw, I don't make any decisions beforehand. Only when I'm making the shot, when the shot is actually come to fruition, at half draw, I say, I'm going to do this right. That gets me through job number 1, which is draw back and aim, get it done, watch to keep it. Then, after my aim is complete, I fill my critical second with those words, here I go. And that keeps me so present in what I'm doing. It's a very powerful thing to have that specific blueprint for an extreme stress event. I mean, it is awesome to know exactly how to do that.
I noticed today, every time the shot broke, and I was surprised how good it feels. And to do that in a high pressure situation, I realize is going to be a totally different ball game. There was some pressure out there, but not like there is when an animal comes through. Thankfully, at some level, I've been able to, when the animal comes through, reach a state of calmness.
Yep.
It's almost the reverse that used to happen to me. It's like I can be super excited, and then in the moment where I'm about to shoot, I'm like super calm. And I don't know, I think a lot of guys experience that after they've had a lot of success.
Right.
Right.
There's always if you talk to every hunter, and you said this yourself, there's a turning point. My turning point was that hog in South Texas, because I've killed just about everything I've shot at since then.
Yep.
But before then, it was a nightmare.
Same here.
And you talked about your turning point as well. And when you analyze that turning point, how did I get myself to do it? You look at that and you say, I made a decision to do that.
Absolutely. And this is something you mentioned, or Corey Miller mentioned this one time. Mark Brownlee, my Scottish friend Mark Brownlee, was talking to Corey, and he was bemoaning some of the experiences. And am I ever going to get the shot? And am I going to make the shot, in that moment? And there were a few moments we'd like to have seen it happen. And Corey said, one of these times you're going to fail so many times that you're going to get so pissed off that you're going to make it happen.
That is the turning point.
Why does getting so upset, so angry with yourself, so disgusted with yourself need to happen for that turning point to occur?
It's that amount of determination that it takes. For me, I had failed so much. When I was at full draw on that hog the first time I drew back, I said, nope, I'm not doing this again. I've got to change how I do it, and in the environments that I work in now, you don't have that option. You can't, but you hear about it all the time. Cops get in gunfights and they shoot an entire magazine. Like I've got a buddy of mine that I trained him in the academy. 8 months out of the academy, he's already been in 2 gunfights, right? The first one was a doozy, right? He gets in this big pursuit. Bad guy whips out an AR-15. All the cars crash in the pursuit. The bad guy whips out AR-15, is shooting over the back seat of his car. And my buddy is putting rounds on this guy with his pistol, right? But he's missing over and over and over. And this guy was a phenomenal shot in the academy, right? But he's missing over and over and over. And he's seeing his rounds hit the back passenger door, low and left, which is what happens when your body braces you for recoil. He goes, he runs out of ammo, right? So he goes behind his car and he does a speed reload, right? Because he's out of bullets. So he gets another magazine, puts it in, and he says while he's doing his reload, that's when he says he hears my voice. And he says he hears me say, put the sight on the bad guy and press through the trigger. So he comes out from the trunk, puts the sight on the bad guy and ends that fight in one more round. But it took him an entire magazine, just like it took me an entire lifetime of failure, right? In a gunfight, you got to speed it up a little bit,
right.
But it took him an entire magazine of rounds to figure out, hey, this isn't working anymore. And him hearing my voice, it wasn't me talking, it was him making the decision to do it right, because he had to come to the realization that nothing else is going to help him other than following the plan that I'd given him.
I can remember that first time when that pivotal moment for me when I shot my first big bull elk. I had screwed up so many gimmies and easy opportunities. I told you I missed one, like from here to the wall right here in front of us. Like,
I have to.
Like, I mean, I could spit on it, and I missed it. Like, how does that happen? They're as big as a house, right? And I miss an elk. And I can remember being very disgusted by it. When I did get that shot, I pulled, like everything changed. I was like, you are dead. I'm not failing this time. I am, and all the anxiety was pretty much gone. It was really just determination. It was concentration. And I pulled back and I put the pin right where I needed it. And I was like, I didn't have emotion involved like I did before, and pulled through and shot it. And it was a great shot. And the bull went down right off the bat. And I was like, wow, that's the first time, with a big animal like that, my dream kind of animal, first time with that opportunity where I was in control of the whole thing. Yeah. Like, I remember each step and each thing I did. There were times where I shot animals and they dropped pretty quickly. But honestly, it was more like autopilot, and I couldn't remember exactly what I did, and I did not have full control of, I didn't feel like I got the job done. I felt like you killed it. I made it happen. I got lucky.
Right.
Like, I'm like, lucky. Whew.
Yeah.
It worked this time.
Right.
That's what it felt like.
And when you say
totally different, it worked versus perfect execution, and I did exactly what I planned, and I put there perfectly.
Now you'll take that determination that you got at your pivotal moment, right? You'll take that determination and you couple it with this blueprint of control. Now you're a lethal machine, right?
Yeah.
Because now you know how you're going to do it. You know the determination it takes to do it. You've already gotten yourself over that little hump. With Iron Mine hunting, that's what I'm trying to do, is get people over that hump way sooner.
Yeah.
There's no reason to waste time. I mean, and hunting is such a precious thing to us, and being a successful hunter is what everybody's seeking, right? And there's no reason to wait 13 years to kill a bull elk. There's no reason to do that.
Well, Scott Carr, he's a pretty good shot at the beginning of his kind of train to hunt journey and stuff. He's like, I'm a good shot. Does very well, and he starts to do less well as he practices more and more and more.
Right.
Until his shooting is worse than it was when he first started doing train to hunt 3 years back.
Right.
And he's like, what am I doing? How come? And he did the Reno event this year, and he didn't do so hot. And out of frustration, he's like, I need help. Finds your class, does it, spends a month or two, I want to say, maybe two months working on it, 3 months. And then does train to hunt in Washington and gets a 92. He scores a 92. Then he goes to, after Washington, he comes to Oregon, and he wins there as well. And it was a tough course, and he shot excellent there. And obviously he had retooled his shooting. He had done quite a bit to improve how it was going down. And that was pretty big. I mean, I couldn't help but go, okay, well, what did he do? Like, how do you get that kind of improvement in a short time? But coming here today and shooting, and David Brinker at Sitka, he was like, Brian, you got to interview Joel Turner. You got to go shoot with this guy. He knows what he's talking about. He's shooting. It's amazing, And like I said, and I heard from others too. So, here I am, and I'm shooting for the day, and man, the power of the mind is incredible. It's far more the key having and granted, I've been shooting a bow a long time now, and so I do think I have some mechanics down that others don't. But with those mechanics, now that I'm adding, concentration is the name of the game. It's the other stuff's just I don't know what to say. Like, obviously, not the main part. Yet it seems like that's the part that a lot of people focus on.
Everybody's seeking this information. Like I was training a really good family friend of ours in Montana. I was training him how to shoot a pistol. And he'd never shot a pistol. He'd never shot a rifle like that with a surprise break. I mean, he was 71 at the time and a fairly successful hunter, but he's missed a lot of stuff in his life and he's killed a lot of stuff in his life. But, if left without this information, was he going to figure this out for himself? You know what I mean? And he said himself, he's sitting there shaking his head while I'm telling him this stuff, and he goes, this makes so much sense. He goes, what I could have done if I would have had this 50 years ago. You know what I mean?
It's funny though. It's like there's the takeaway for me is there's two parts to how I shoot a bow or a gun or whatever. There's the automatic part that will just take over, and I'll get an arrow off. It'll go.
Yeah.
It'll go toward it.
Right.
But it might go 3 feet over, 3 feet under. There's an automatic part, and it will take over, and it will make the shot break. It will happen. And then there's this other part that I can actually control and have extreme accuracy with. So which part am I going to let? Which part am I going to have with me in the field in that moment of truth when I'm shooting an animal? And the mind part of the shot, the non-automatic part of the shot is the part that needs to win because that's the accurate.
You got to know how to win that fight, how to even fight that battle. And
words are powerful.
They are powerful, but people abuse them. They don't realize the power. There's a lot of good firearms instructors and good archery instructors out there that will talk you through a shot, but they're not teaching you how to do it yourself. You have to be, like, when you leave this clinic today, you should be self-sufficient in the diagnosis and treatment of any shooting problem that could occur. You now know exactly the blueprint and how to follow it. So, people have been dancing around this stuff. There's no reason to dance anymore.
Well, there's going to be some people listening that are highly skeptical.
Sure.
Right?
I invite that. You should be skeptical. You should be skeptical of any instruction that you take. But the skepticism, what I'm talking about, I've never had anybody go, nope, that doesn't make any sense to me, right? I've had people say this. I've had people, take instruction when I used to, because I put my phone number on the internet in February of 2012 because I'd finally had enough of the advice that was being put out there on the internet of people that really hadn't done the research. And, I spent 234 hours on the phone with people. Somebody called me up, hey, I need to talk to you about target. I'm like, okay, you got an hour? Right? So I would walk them through this, and, they'd call me up 2 weeks later, oh, my God, this is the greatest thing ever, right? But then 6 months later, they could say, hey, your system's not working for me anymore. And I would say, it never has worked for you. Any instruction you take is not going to work for you. But that's the mindset of most people that take instruction. I'm going to buy this new release. I'm going to buy this new bow. I hope it helps me. Hope is not a course of action, right? And it's not going to work for you. It's just another device, right? It won't work for you. You have to work for it. But the instruction that you take that you should be skeptical of has got to teach you how to do the work. And that's what I'm teaching is the how to do it. And that's the difference.
Yeah. Well, Scott said, so this is the first time Scott's met you face-to-face. So Scott did all of his improvement, he was telling me earlier, online. on an online course.
Right.
So people can go to
Hunting.com.
Yep. And they can take a course online.
Yep.
He was like, man, I took the course and wow, I mean, it changed everything right off the bat. And then he came today and he got hands-on and more. But it speaks a lot to the quality of the class and the online course, which I haven't done. But to have Scott say, hey, I took it and, man, it made a huge difference. And he was looking for someone to teach him. And to be able to take it and then apply it says a lot.
Yeah, and that course, it's 49 different videos. And we go through the entire science of what target panic is, how it rears its ugly head, and the science of how to get around it. Then there's a compound release aid track, where we talk about how to actually run that, how to do the signature test to figure out your speed limit. And then there's an entire traditional archery track where we talk about psychological triggers, how to set them up, and then how to apply this science to those as well. So when you get done with that course, it's just like being here at a live event. I mean, it's
comprehensive.
You've come out of there knowing, I mean, it's like drinking out of a fire hose, man. I mean, you should have a very specific blueprint. And if you take that course and you don't get that, let me know, and I will square you away.
So tell me, what's the course cost?
Course costs $200.
$200?
Yeah. So,
okay. And I just say this, based on my experience today, being a shooting for quite a long time, being a good shooter, there are times where I'm like, in a big group, I do very well. I'm toward the top. Like I told you earlier, as soon as I switched bows, all of a sudden I've got to become familiar with the bow again, like get really intimate with the bow. And we were talking about this, whereas today I'm a pro shooter in a day, and I'm not intimate with the bow. It's still very, very new. With the other bow, I had like 4 years. 4 years, actually. 4 years.
You should be able to pick up any bow, shoot any release. People come to my clinic and they've got a release that's not that great, right? And they're like, well, this isn't the greatest release. And I say it's the perfect one for you to bring to my clinic because it makes you work mentally to get through it.
Well, and I think what I've done is because I'm so intimate with that bow and I've tuned it and matched it to me, I've learned how to use it effectively with my recoil input. My recoil response input.
Sure.
And so when I go to a different bow, instead of shooting it right per se, I'm trying to become really skilled at managing my recoil input.
Yeah,
which is a completely different.
It's good that
goal.
you didn't get a new bow just to try to fix your target panic. So that's good because people will use the novelty of things.
Yeah,
like there was a gentleman here last night that went to a back tension release. It was a hinge release. You're supposed to be moving that thing nice and slow until it breaks as a surprise. But as soon as he drew that bow back, I could see his finger twitch on it. And as soon as I saw that, the finger twitched, and then boom, he broke it as a command shot. And so then we went through the whole process. But he bought that release because he was punching the trigger on an index finger. You should be able to pick up anything like
your son does, like Bowden.
Like Bodie. I mean, he just you can pick up any release.
Yep.
As soon as you know how it works and the mechanism of it, you should be able to run it because you're not going to shoot it unless it's perfect.
Well, what I was going to say is, to me, I would gladly, now that I've been here and done that, I would gladly pay for that course. To get, for $200 to get the and I'm not getting paid by you or anybody else to say this or anything like that. I'm just saying, from someone out there that has greatly benefited from what I learned today, it's not going to hurt you.
No.
And
it's a
based
life-changing
on my experience. This is life-changing. You can, what's crazy to me is how simple shooting really is. Really, at the end of the day, how simple it really is. It's getting control of your mind.
It's simple, but it's not easy because your mind will never just go, okay, we're just going to surrender, right? And just let you cause an explosion. You have to fight it every single shot. But if you know how to fight it, you're much more effective in that battle.
What's so funny is I absolutely know when the shot was right and when it was wrong. And I can't hide it from somebody like you or anybody else that was here today that's watching.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. Oh, yeah, that was a bad one. That was really bad. And yet, at 20 yards, they're both killing the animal.
Sure.
I'm pretty good at killing an animal with a punch in the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
But not like you're talking about groups like this and then all the arrows touching.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the further out I go, that's going to make the bigger and bigger difference.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
Anyway, I definitely think that it's money well spent for sure. It just would help, could definitely. There's not anybody I think that would not benefit from taking it, even guys that have been doing this a long time.
I've never had anybody not be able to do this.
Yeah.
If you take the instruction and you make the decisions and you know what decisions to make, when to make them, and how to carry them out, it's the information we're all seeking. I know I sought it my entire life, and I just had a few unique opportunities of instruction that I was able to really start down this path and do the research that I've done. But it took me a lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, I just turned 40, and it took me a long time to figure this out. If I'd have had this information somewhere else, it would have been awesome to have.
I agree. Well, I want to ask you on the podcast here one more thing. That we're going to switch gears a little bit from the shooting to the cow calling.
The bull calling cow's bugle.
Bull calling cow's bugle.
Okay.
Yes. And I heard you talk about this with Chris on the Sharp Sticks. Really interesting. So let's get into that.
Okay.
Tell me about this.
So this one level deeper thinking, right, transcends over to elk calling as well. And me being a police officer, I have the unique opportunity to watch people in primal stages all the time, right? It's where I learn most about my elk calling and how I should be doing it, just by watching people. So I unfortunately have to go to bar fights all the time, right? And isn't that what we're really trying to do in the elk woods? I mean, aren't we trying to pick a fight with this bull to get him to come and fight us? Right?
Yes.
That's what we're ultimately trying to do. Either we're luring him in with a cow call, right? If he doesn't have any cows, we're going to be cow calling this bull. And if you want to talk about that, we can do that as well. But my go-to technique is so in line with mammal intuition.
Yeah.
It's been 100%, and that's a very big claim to make, right? I understand that.
Yeah.
But think of it, when you think about 100%, let's think of it this way. If you wanted to get in a fight, how would you do that? Here's your options, right?
Yeah.
This is how you might do it. This is how most people...
I've been working really hard at avoiding fights my whole life. So.
Right. But in the elk woods, you're trying to get in a fight with this bull. You want him to come in and fight you, right? So, if you were to do this in the human world, you would go to the bar, right? And you would step in the front door. Would you go in there, look around... Any takers, right? You wouldn't go in there and challenge all of the males because you're only maybe going to get one to fight you, right? If you want to get in a fight 100% of the time around the globe, wouldn't even matter what language that other person speaks, you would go into that bar and you would find the first lady that is definitely with a dude. And then you just go talk to her very inappropriately, right? And you would find yourself in a fight every single time. No matter what the size of that male is, no matter what. He is going to do whatever he can because he wants to stay with that female, right? She makes him a calf every year.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that's how you go about picking a fight in the human world. So if you were to go into the elk world and all you do is challenge bugle, That's all you're doing. You're asking all the dudes who wants to fight, and you might get 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20, right? How many bulls do you get the opportunity to do this on per year, right?
Right.
So you might only get 5 or 6 bulls a year that you're dealing with that are bugling. Well, if none of those are of the right attitude, you're not going to call in any bulls with this challenge bugle.
Okay.
So
makes sense.
If you go in on these bulls, if you've determined that they do have cows and they're a herd bull, you slip in as close as you can to the cows and you only speak to the ladies.
So what does that sound like?
Well, let me get my call. I'll show you.
Yeah. Do it. I want to hear some lady talk.
When bulls are talking to cows, they follow a very specific structure. This has just been my experience with. I've called in 29 herd bulls in the last 4 years with this specific sound and just this sound.
Okay.
So it follows a very specific structure. It's raspy at the start, it goes up, and then it rasps out. There's no chuckles, right? This is just my opinion. There may be other people that have different opinions, but when I have heard bulls talking directly to cows and been able to witness it, they do not chuckle. So I recommend folks do not chuckle if this is the technique that you're going to use.
Okay.
Because as soon as you chuckle, you're talking to the dudes, and then you've just decreased your odds on how it's going to run. So if you want to get in tight on the cows, I try to get within 50 yards of the cows. Get your arrow on.
And then
get
you're
your
a
release
bull
on.
elk talking to cows.
I'm talking.
And you're like,
very
hey, lady,
you're right.
come over here.
I'm talking.
I got what you need.
Very inappropriately to her. Okay?
Okay.
This is what it sounds like.
Okay. And wait. How do you know what it sounds like? How do you know what a bull talking to a lady sounds like?
So I've watched so many bulls do this.
Yeah.
And every time that you have cow called to a bull and he's bugled back to that cow call, he's done this bugle.
Okay.
People just don't know what they're listening for.
Makes sense.
Okay? So it sounds
So now we're a bull and
Right,
we're gonna
right.
sweet talk a lady.
right. You're talking very inappropriately.
To her
Right.
while her husband
Right.
is there.
Standing right there with
Right
her.
there. That's insulting.
Yeah. Check this out.
Okay, do that again. Put the mic a little closer. Let's do that right there.
Okay.
Let's see if that's any. Okay, do it one more time.
So that is very short, it's raspy, and there's no chuckles. That is the key to it. So when you do that, he's going to scream a challenge bugle back to you.
Okay.
Just like if you and your wife are in a parking lot and we're 100 yards apart,
Yeah.
and I start talking to her very inappropriately, you're going to say something back to me, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're gonna challenge me,
Like, dude,
right?
what the heck?
Right. You're gonna challenge me. So here comes our friend again. I called in a German Shepherd, so that must be pretty good, right?
He's like, dude, there's.
So, and you're gonna come over to me in a very specific way. When you start across the parking lot, you're gonna get all tough guyed up, right? You're gonna
Right.
puff up and you're gonna walk across that parking lot. And here's the kicker. You're not going to stop. You're not going to stop until you reach me. But when people are cow calling, you're always dealing with the hung up bull, right?
Right.
And we can talk about those techniques as well. But you're not going to stop. You're going to come all the way. And that's the beauty of this technique is there's no hang up spot associated with it. You bugle one time, he's going to do a challenge bugle back, and then you just let him hunt you. And he's going to just come in all tough guyed up. He's going to be looking side to side until he catches an arrow. It's a beautiful thing. Like I said, 29 herd bulls to that one sound.
So you just get in close as you can.
Yep.
Run that sound.
I've done it as close as 10 yards from the cows and as far as 120 yards from the cows.
Okay.
The only times this
So
has...
you don't add more bugles or
No.
anything after that?
No, you don't... Would I need to bugle more? Would I need to yell at her more?
No.
One time's all it's going to take, right? And get this. So I've had to bugle twice, 6 times of the 29. Every time I've had to bugle twice, it's because that bull raked a tree, right? So he starts over to show dominance. He's going to rake a tree.
Right.
Just like if you're walking across the parking lot and you see a nice, new, shiny trash can, right?
Right.
You're going to kick the crap out of that thing to show me how much of a tough guy you are, right?
Right.
That's what they do. So as soon as they start raking a tree, you just talk to his lady again, and you are now out of your mind, right? It's a whole new level of rage, and you see it. I mean, every bar fight is over a woman. It's not two dudes going, hey, Brian, I'm bored. Let's kick the crap out of each other. That's not how it runs. So
Interesting.
these people that are going around doing a lot of challenge bugling, yeah, you're going to call in a few bulls.
Right.
But I'm talking about calling in every herd bull you deal with. You don't have an option anymore because she might be interested. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I might be a 7x7. She might be interested. Your only option is to remove me.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's interesting. I have to watch a cow, bull call to a cow and stuff.
Right. So I've got it. I have it all on my YouTube channel, on Iron Mind Hunting on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
I show you a bull and I talk you through the situation, and then he comes out and he's looking for those cows, and then you hear that exact bugle. You get to see a nice 6x6 do it right there. And I've done it so many times.
Yeah.
Got to be something to it, right?
Well, and Jason Phelps and Charlie Smith, they have kind of their some ways they do it. Corey Jacobson kind of has a twist that he does. And, Corey describes doing it, and we've done it this way, and it's worked well, where he doesn't throw out a challenge at all. He just does a bunch of cow calls, and just lots of, waiting, but prepared for when that bull calls to the cows. And the bull does. He bugles a nice, hey, I'm over here, ladies. And then what he does is he cuts that bull off with a challenge in the middle of that response. And what we've found is that worked really well as well. Like, he's sitting there like, oh, I'm talking to the girl, and the girl's, and he talks to the lady, and he's like, hey, I'm over here. And then the guy, what the? Don't talk to my girl.
Right.
And all of a sudden, he's like, whoa, who are you? And then it starts this fight.
I imagine the bugle that he does is very similar to that.
Yeah.
It's, when you talk to a lot of good callers, it may sound a bit different at the start, the technique of what they use. But then at the end, it all kind of comes together as this short, screamy bugle. And you're talking to Shannon Mobbs, right? So same thing. Our calling techniques are almost exactly the same. We did a seminar together the other day. And
he's at Angry Spike Productions.
Right.
We just had him on the podcast the other day.
And I was listening to that podcast, and I'm thinking, it's exactly the same as what I do. So when I got to actually meet him, I said, when you do that scream that you talk about, do you chuckle? He's like, no. I said, way to go. So it gave him a little bit of background of his technique that has worked so well for him. I mean, extremely successful elk hunter. Same technique that I use. I've just watched so many bulls do it with that specific structure. You don't have to be a world champion elk caller to do this. You just have to follow the structure and remember no chuckles. A lot of people kind of happen upon this technique because they get in tight and they say, oh, I just did a spike bugle, right? Which was a short bugle with no chuckles at the end of it. They did a bull calling cows bugle, right? So you can really see it. And, the next time you're out there, if you do cow call and a bull bugles back to you, just listen to it very specifically. It's going to have that bugle inside it somewhere. Yeah. Short, raspy, no
But what
chuckles.
you like to do is get in close, call to the cow with that sound.
Yep.
And then let the bull come in.
Absolutely. And he does. I mean, he'll scream a challenge, and then here he comes. Now, that's
for a herd bull.
That's for a bull that's got cows.
Right.
If you've determined that bull doesn't have cows, how I do it is I locate, right? I do a very high-frequency location bugle. Mm-hmm. That bull's going to bugle back to me. Mm-hmm. Then my job is to figure out whether he's got cows or not. So I'm going to get closer to him. And if I need to relocate him, I'm not going to bugle again, because if I bugle again, I'm just another bull coming in to get his cows.
Yeah.
So if I'm still like 300 yards back from him, I'm going to do some cow calling just to get him to bugle back to relocate him. Okay. All I'm trying to do is get in closer to this thing.
Right.
So I'm going to hit him with some cow calls. And where did my cow calls go? I'm going to hit him with some loud cow calls. He's yeah, we just had one. Look at that, man. It's July and they're already bugling back to me, right? So that bull's going to bugle back to you, and then he's going to do a bull calling cows bugle back to you when you relocate him. Then you just give him the silent treatment. Don't say anything. You might break a stick or something. And then you're going to wait for him to bugle again. His next bugle is going to tell you your strategy that you're going to pick. So if he bugles to you and he's closer to you, he doesn't have any cows. He's coming, right? If he bugles again, he's in the same spot, he's got cows. Therefore, move in closer, try to get within 50 yards of cows, bull calling cows bugle. But if he's coming, you go, oh man, that sounds a little closer, right? What a lot of people do is they set up the shooter first. Like if you're in a caller-shooter situation, they set up the shooter first. You sit here, I'm going to go back 70 yards, I'm going to pull him right past you.
Which is what Shannon Mobbs, Angry Spike, they talked about how they don't do that.
Right. So the key is to set the caller first because of this principle. That bull is going to stop every time he can see the calling location. That's the hang-up spot, right?
Right.
Not the shooter location. So you got to set up the calling location first.
I think we as hunters sometimes assume that bull is coming in looking for humans first,
right?
But maybe thinking it's an elk.
Right. He's looking
they don't.
for a cow.
They
elk.
assume. I think very rarely do they jump to, oh, that's probably a person.
Right.
They're responding to instinct.
Otherwise, why would they ever come into that?
Yep.
Right. So he's going to come to the place where he can see that calling location, and you know that. So set your calling location, look out in front of you, and go, where are my hang-up spots? Where is he going to be able to see this spot? And then you know where you have to send your shooter to. Get your shooter on the other side, on the elk side of the hang-up spot, because bulls don't usually start their wind arc until after the hang-up spot. If you've ever seen a bull travel to a hang-up spot, they are clueless. They just, she sounds pretty hot, right? They're just going to the hang-up spot. So I'm not trying to call bulls past hang-up spots. I'm only trying to call them two hang-up spots. That's why I'm able to call in so many bulls, because I'm not trying to do unnatural stuff. Yeah. If they make it to the hang-up spot, they should already be shot.
Right.
And if you're doing it as a solo hunter, right, just, this is my calling location, mew, 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 do your cow estrus stuff, and then move. The only time that I am quiet in the elk woods is between calling location and shooting location. Otherwise, I'm making all kinds of noise. But if between those two places you snap a big stick, you just became a new calling location. Now he thinks that cow elk is
closer.
Wherever you just snapped that stick, right? New hang-up spot. So if you break a big stick, stop, evaluate what you got for hang-up spots, move accordingly, adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
So that runs right along with mammal intuition. We're making it way harder than it needs to be because we're trying to elicit attitude instead of instinct. My whole thing when I do an elk calling seminar, it's called instinctive elk calling. And I've learned a lot from the people at the bar.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So once I've implemented this program, it's
cool.
I know how I'm going to call them in, and I know how I'm going to shoot them. Makes for a pretty deadly combination.
Let's do that one more time for people.
Which one do you want?
Cow. Bull calling cow.
Okay, here we go.
Do it again. All right.
Look at they're screaming back at me.
There's bulls everywhere.
They're everywhere here.
Well, that'd be cool. Guys get to practice it and maybe give it a stab. So Iron Mind Hunting on YouTube.
Yes.
They can check it out there,
yep,
too.
I've got the whole bull calling cows thing on there. I've got a whole cow calling techniques on there. I put out a monthly newsletter. This month it was about how to sleep with the elk. Where do you sleep when you bivvy hunt?
Okay.
According to thermals and their travel patterns and all that stuff. So it's a pretty good way of doing business.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I want to thank you for having me down today.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
It was fun. I learned a lot.
Good.
I feel like anytime I can hang out with guys that nerd out on hunting as much as you do
Yeah,
is pretty awesome.
It's my life, man.
Hang out with Scott, see your son Bodie just kill it on the 3D course.
It's pretty cool to watch.
Brent Hahn had us over. I want to thank his family for having us here and letting us
Right.
shoot his 3D range.
Right.
All good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you for
it.
having me.
Stay gritty.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
Okay, Gritty friends, I hope you enjoyed that podcast. If you did, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher. We love reading your reviews. And connect with us on social media if you're on there. Look us up on Facebook and Instagram, and take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can receive notifications when we upload new videos. We've got a sweet deal with Mountain Ops. You get 20% off on all Mountain Ops supplements, combo packs, and apparel when you type in the word gritty at checkout. If you're a hardcore elk hunter, or you want to be, go to the Elk 101 website online and check them out. Our friend Corey Jacobson is killing it with some of the best elk hunting information and entertainment on the web. If you haven't heard, we're doing a huge gear giveaway to try and grow and expand the Gritty community on Facebook and Instagram. I asked a bunch of friends to pitch in on this gear giveaway, and they all came through with some awesome stuff. Our friends at Kifaru, Rockslide, First Light, Phelps Game Calls, One Shot Gear, Mountain Ops, Triple X Archery, Blacktail Outdoors, and Is It September Yet are pitching in some sweet gear for the giveaway. We'll announce all the details in the next few weeks. All you have to do to be entered to win is like our Gritty Bowmen Facebook page and follow us on Instagram. All right, friends, let me leave you with one other quote from Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "It behooves every man to remember that the work of the critic is of altogether secondary importance, and that, in the end, progress is accomplished by the man who does things." We all have a choice. We can be people who do things or people who criticize the work of others. It's pretty simple, really. Get out there and do your thing. Good luck on your hunts, and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
Gritty Bowmen.